meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Trustee Bellinger? Here. Trustee Malkowski? Here. Trustee Collins? Absent. Trustee Guerrero? Here. Trustee Bison?
Here. Trustee
Foley? Here. President Kreidmar?
Here.
Treasurer Stein? Here. Clerk, that's it.
The approval of agenda, I'm afraid I have a couple of additions. Under new business, H, Capital Improvement Committee. And under I is going to be the Sidewalks Program. Did everyone get their information? Okay. And then under unfinished business, we have to add an I. It's going to be a performance resolution. Is the stormwater ordinance?
Stormwater's on there. It's out.
Oh, it's already, okay.
I'm sorry, what was I for unfinished business?
Performance resolution.
Performance resolution.
Public comments on the agenda?
We gotta
We want to
approve
approve it?
Oh,
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
it. So moved.
this was supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now public comment on the agenda.
Good evening, Council. My name is Patrick McKay. I represent Robin Carr on Agenda Item 9D 1 and 2, which is a proposed rezoning of my client's two properties, one from general business to multifamily, and one from multifamily to single family. My client objected at the Planning Commission meeting. I also directed two letters to the board dated November 8th and 12/13, also objecting. These would both be down zones for my client. I'm here for that reason, just wanted to introduce myself if you want any comment at that time. I think I could probably convince my client, not to go crazy if the one parcel ending in 002 went from multifamily to single family, but the general business to multifamily behind the Rite Aid is problematic for him. So just wanted to let you all know that, and I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Public comment on the agenda? Approval of the minutes for Cdbg public hearing minutes for January 11th, 2022.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the minutes for the ZBA hearing minutes for January 11th, 2022.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the council meeting minutes for January 11th, 2022.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda.
Make a motion that we receive and file the consent agenda.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Payment of bills. Treasurer's report.
The bills to be paid for January 2022 include payroll of $83,000, $648.33. Bills to be paid total $179,800.53 for a total of $263,448.86. The village assets total $6,150,099.48.
Do I have a motion for the approval of bills?
Make a motion that we approve the payment of our bills in the amount of $263,448.86.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Malkowski?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero? Yes. Trustee Foley?
Yes.
President Kreidmar?
Yes.
Make a motion that we receive and file the treasurer's report.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Communication committee report. Clerk? Do we have the clerk's report?
Oh, I'm sorry. Agenda items for the March meeting are due by the end of February. Of course, it's not month end, so I'm a little flexible on that. We ran into a little bit of a problem with public hearings and the posting rule with February being a short month, so just wanted to put a reminder out there that we have to have it posted for 15 days, so Lori asked me to remind everybody of that. And, well, mostly because the Voice has changed their deadline from Friday at noon to Wednesday at noon.
Oh, okay.
We didn't learn that until we tried to submit afternoon, and they were like, no.
Planning commission report.
The planning commission met on the 1st of February, and we are continuing to work on the master plan. We had additional property that we discussed rezoning. I did bring back to planning the issue that came up at Cdbg regarding the wall signs, about if there was interest to re-look at that. There is not an interest,
Okay.
and that's it.
And the Parks and Rec committee.
Yes, we met, and we're having our Easter parade, or like our Easter roll, April 17th, 2022. We're also discussing some things in the making for like the community center to get more access to that, and we have our budget meeting tomorrow. So yeah, we're just getting some things lined up for the summer, like the music in the park and all that. So we have some great ideas.
Great, thank you. What was the Easter egg roll again?
April 17th.
April 7th.
Yep, and lineup is going to be 10:30, and the actual parade is going to be at 11 a.m.
All right, under new business. Ms. Navy, can I see you for a moment?
Am I in trouble?
Yes, you are. Did you bring cash?
Very little.
I think we're all familiar with Tina and John Nagy and the awesome things they've done for our community. That was never more evident at the Thanksgiving drive-through. We had the meeting at 1 o'clock, and by 4 o'clock we had turkeys and Beckett's pumpkin pie. It was a land speed record. But if you go on the Haven Place website, you see all of the incredible engagement she has for our community with classes and for Valentine's Day gifts. She just brings so much to the community. So I nominated Ms. Nagy to be recognized by a national company called Civic Plus. They do community outreach, volunteerism, and volunteer programs for communities with populations under 25,000. And I really bragged on you. I told them about the incredible stuff that you're doing, and you have been recognized as one of the top 100 volunteers in the nation.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So.
Wow. It's all God.
So it's not much, but it's our way of saying that we appreciate everything you do, and we had to brag on you a little bit. So
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. 7 years in March. So John is retiring in March. So the next 7 is going to be even better.
all right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we have to set a public hearing in March for fiscal year 22-23 proposed budget. Rachel, do you have a proposed date?
That would be the March meeting, March 8th, 6:30.
We're gonna do a 6:30, 6:45.
It's up to council's pleasure. We usually do 6:30.
Okay, 6:30 at the March meeting. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion for the public hearing to be set for March 8th at 6:30.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, residence survey. We have to do some community outreach because we did receive a total of $257,000 in the American Rescue Plan funding. We got an additional $1,000. And part of it is community outreach, what the residents would like done with what will end up being almost $500,000. Now, they just had a final ruling, and it's been like standing on quicksand trying to figure out the rules. They kept changing them. But the federal government finally realized that they didn't have the manpower to look at all of the paperwork for every single community in America that received those funds. So they took the little guys, the NEUs, non-entitlement units, like us, and said, the reporting has changed, you don't have to justify. You do have to report what you did with the funding, but virtually we will claim it as lost revenue, and we will be able to utilize the funds as we and our residents see fit. So what I'd like to do is have council think about a number of items, 5 items, maybe 6 at the most, of civic improvements that we can offer to our residents, and then put it out under SurveyMonkey with a place for comments in case somebody else has the next big bright idea. I would rather we narrow the field down, because if we just say, give us your idea, we're going to get 500 different responses. So I would like council to consider what options we can offer our residents for improvement and how we want to use the funds. We do have to dedicate these funds this year and let the federal government know this is what we're planning to do. Then we have 2 years after this year to use the funds. So I'm just asking you at this point, think about this. What do we want to offer the residents? Shoot me any ideas you may have, and I'd like to get the survey out, finalize the survey at the March 8th meeting, so we can get it out and then dedicate the funds. Sound good? Okay, great, thank you. Fire department truck repair. We had an unexpected problem with one of our trucks. The water valve was leaking, which meant no pressure, which means they couldn't use it at the scene of a fire. So they did have to repair the vehicle. Michigan Fire Apparatus repaired the vehicle, total amount $2,949.57. They do have to get authorization from the council to pay the bill. So do I have a motion?
I move that we pay Michigan Fire Apparatus Incorporated in the amount of $2,949.57 to repair the truck.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Foley?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Oh, sorry. Did you have a question?
They have the money in their budget to cover this
Yes.
expense. Sorry.
Trustee Bellinger? Yes. Trustee Bukowski?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
And President Craig?
Yes. And you have a copy of an invoice from Paymar. It was a repair on a fire hydrant on Arlington. If you notice the date, it's June 24th of last year. We thought this bill had been paid. Somehow the bill slipped through our fingers. So I'm asking council to authorize a payment to Paymar Industries for a hydrant repair that happened last June in the amount of $4,352.17.
Just out of curiosity, were we ever able to identify the vehicle that struck the fire hydrant to try to have them pay for the repairs?
No, that vehicle was long gone about time. The fire department actually got there. It was just pieces of the car still there. They tried to figure out which vehicle it was, but they were unable. But yeah, what happened is they cracked the hydrant at the bottom, so they had to dig it up at the bottom right by the main and do a repair. So, but as far as finding the vehicle, no, it's never happened. We just left a lot of parts behind.
Make a motion that we approve the invoice for Paymar Enterprises in the amount of $4,352.17.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Meisen?
Yes.
Trustee Pankowski?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
And President Prymore.
Yes. All right, and we have a pre-qualification for Paymar Industries, so that going forward, we can approach them to do work. They submitted paperwork showing their certifications and updated licenses. So do I have a motion to accept Paymar Industries' approval of pre-qualification?
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the Parks and Recreation Plan. Parks and Rec Chair Mark Hashik and I had a meeting with Macomb County Planning, and they are willing to work with us to develop the Parks and Rec Plan and to get it published much like the master plan. The cost will be $2,000 for the assistance in printing it. The meetings would begin in March. The Macomb County Planning and Economic Development staff will present plan updates at 4 different meetings, the recreation meetings, Parks and Rec. In April, they present community description and inventory section of the plans, and it goes all the way through September, where we finalize the 30-day review and package. Final draft goes to village council. But the cost is $2,000 for them to do the plan. I think it's well worth it. We'll have a professional looking plan, and we'll be working with Parks and Rec about, as part of the ARC funding, to see what kind of developments, once we do community outreach and we see the direction of development, if our residents want upgrades to community park, that'll be part of the conversation. So a lot of different plans are dovetailing. We want to try and incorporate as much of the information we get about the residents' wants, about the ARC funded spending, if they want a pavilion at the park, if they want to upgrade Fountain Park, we'd be able to include that in the plan this year. So what I'm looking for council to do is to authorize $2,000 so that we can begin updating our Parks and Recreation plan. Any questions?
So I saw in the bullets, it talks about the 4 recreation commission meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like there's more than 4 listed there in the bullets from March through September.
Yeah, they're
They're all covered, right?
right.
Mrs. Prymore, and this is often a requirement for grants, correct?
Yes, it is. Now, I talked to Macomb County because it takes so long to plan projects. To do the community outreach, we're good. She said you probably would not, any grant that you apply for this year that you would have to use this year, we wouldn't have the planning in place to use it. So this will be timely for the 2023 year. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to enter into an agreement with Macomb County Planning to do the Village of New Haven 5-year Parks and Natural Resources Plan.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Can you include the dollar amount in?
$2,000. Thank you, Mario.
Trustee Pankowski?
Yes.
Trustee Meisen?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
And President Prymore.
Yes. Okay, Capital Improvement Committee. We're required to have a capital improvement plan, so we need to develop one. And I've already presented the ideas and information to the planning committee. And their thought is that we should probably do a joint committee between Parks and Rec, Council, and Planning. So we're going to be creating the Capital Improvement Committee. I'm getting the information already from DPW. I do have the information from the fire department so that we can plan to replace equipment on either a 1, 3, or 5-year arc. So I'd like members of council to consider whether or not they would like to volunteer to be on the committee. There'll be more information going forward, but again, it's to format a capital improvement program. This is the early stages, so I'm just running it past you guys right now. We're giving the information also to Parks and Rec at their meeting. And this capital improvement program is part of the paperwork or the project, the program to be in place for some grants. So we're going to get this formatted and get the information going. So if you want to keep it in your mind, if you want to volunteer for the committee, I'd appreciate it. Okay, the Sidewalk Program. You've got some information today about moving forward with filling in some of the sidewalk gaps. And you got the information from Sandy. Did everyone get their copy of the?
Yes.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions or need clarification on it?
So is this completely, like, what, how much are we connecting?
This
Or
is
how much are we not connecting?
Well,
Or whatever's
there's-
easier for you.
Yeah, there's several gaps throughout the village, and I want to thank Surmet again because he was a rock star. I said, hey, you know, we had the budget here, now we got the money. Can we do a sidewalk program this year? And he got me the figures, and he got me the streets. There will still be gaps, and he said it very well. He said every year you fill in some of the gaps, and then next year you fill in some more of the gaps as funding permits. So we do have funding available to do Haven Ridge and Clark, which are major streets. Both projects can be done. It's going to run about $200,000 on an estimate. Elk Street is a local street, but the project can be done an estimate for $20,000. And then the 27 Mile and Gratiot project that we've been scheduling and planning for years, that does qualify for the Highway Improvement Fund, and that project, our portion of it is $86,000. So we are funded to do these projects. Sidewalks would be Haven Ridge, Main to Ann, Elk to Clark, and Clark to Prospect. And again, there will be more gaps, but we're taking them as we get them. And I'd like to see the major roadway, like Haven Ridge, Main Street, eventually Gratiot, have those. Take care of those. Clark Street would be Haven Ridge to Main, estimated cost $100,000. And then Elk Street, Lewis to Main, estimated cost $20,000. And so that's here, if anybody has any questions or.
So when I'm looking at the satellite view, when we talk about Haven Ridge, Main to Ann, isn't that's Fountain Park?
Yeah, across the street, yeah.
Oh, on the east side of the street?
On the east side.
Okay.
There's a small, old segment that needs to be replaced, and then we connect to the one just south of Division.
Okay. And then Elk to Clark.
Elk, Lewis to Main?
So.
Elk to Clark.
Yeah, Elk to Clark.
Okay.
Where?
Elk doesn't cross.
No,
Yeah, that's where
doesn't.
I'm
It would be
struggling to
Elk,
find.
yeah.
Where does Elk cross Clark?
It does not cross, it's just north of Elk to Clark.
If you look at this
If you
map,
look at
can
the
you
pink-
provide?
Oh.
I typed that wrong, it's supposed to be.
It's
Oh.
Haven
I forgot the
Ridge.
north thing, yeah.
I'm going off of the sheet on our desk.
Oh.
So it's
It's
Haven Ridge, north of Elk to Clark.
To Clark.
And then
Yeah.
Clark to
Okay,
Prospect
now I
on Haven
understand.
Ridge,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me open that. That'll make more sense.
So each one of these do have a sidewalk, but you're just looking for both sides of the road now, right?
Well, not all of them have sidewalks. In front of Hoffman's, there's no sidewalk.
Right.
There's a little portion of Clark Street going up to the railroad tracks, but the map was a little misleading. There's not that much missing, so we're not gonna do that.
So I just want to, Mario said that you're putting a secondary sidewalk on the other side of the street.
Right, in front of Hoffman's.
taken a minute, we just,
No, that's fine.
so.
So is Orchard missing sidewalks on both sides?
Orchard never had sidewalks.
That's what I'm saying, so it's missing it entirely.
Yeah.
And again, there's gaps that we're gonna have to address next year.
No,
There are
for sure.
homes, no driveways on Orchard.
Never mind.
I think the homes are either facing Clark or Main.
Oh, okay.
But we can
Right, so the
certainly
homes are
put
there.
some sidewalks
Still the fronts of the homes are there.
Well, they don't face the
on one
street.
side.
Orchard did, is what you're saying.
Right.
Orchard doesn't need all the sidewalks.
Well, that's it, is like the, yeah, like just as a pass through, because some of them are getting both sides and then.
So Rod, could you give us, like, what is the percentage this is gonna cover of what possibly could be done? I don't read, if you know that figure off the top of your head, if not, that's fine. Approximate, is this 10%, 50%?
I'm sorry, I was answering that question.
Oh,
What was the
my
question?
question is, what percentage is this of sidewalks that need to be done in the community? If you don't know, that's fine.
Oh, the total?
Is it,
Yeah, maybe 10 to 20%.
okay.
And to answer Orchard, there is one house at the corner, but they have two driveways, one on Orchard, one on Main. We can certainly switch Elk to Orchard if council wishes to do that.
Orchard only has one driveway. There's one driveway, it's my parents' house.
Yes,
There's no sidewalks.
one drive.
One driveway.
I mean, for the most part, I like all of what I see. I mean, and I agree. I mean, we can't do everything all at once in 1 year. To me, the biggest one that I really like is the Haven Ridge from Clark North. That's been a common complaint from our residents, that it's not really walkable. I mean, it is, but it isn't walkable to get to community parks. Because you have to cross the street, and you have to cross the street, and you have to cross, you're going back and forth crossing each side of the street. So doing Haven Ridge from Clark north towards Superb Machine Repair, that would at least fill that gap that, you know, you can stay on the one side of the street. It'd be really nice if we could do the north side of Clark Street, but again, I understand we can only do so much in 1 year.
Yeah, and to Brian's point, I think that from a Parks and Rec perspective, that's been kind of a complaint, especially on the slow roll nights, because we have the police presence on the way to the park, but then after, like, the movies in the park and stuff, it doesn't exist, and so it's, yeah.
And certainly next year, we can go over the sidewalk map and, you know, pick out more, but like Sir Matt said, a little each year, and we can get it done.
And the requests that we have, I know that maybe these aren't 100% accurate on the descriptions, but the ask is to do all of the projects in pink on that map, right, this year.
Yeah, the three projects that are listed, Haven Ridge, Main and Clark, Haven Ridge to Main and Elk, those to Main, those are the three projects.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I, you know, in addition to north side of Haven Ridge on Clark, or the northeast side, you know, the other part that I really like when I see this is that it bridges a lot of the gaps downtown. You know, that's been one of the things that we've been talking about, is trying to bring this to be a really walkable area. Now, I understand that, you know, Orchard doesn't have any at all, and it looks like there might be a couple of gaps here and there, but this definitely would bridge a lot of the gaps that we have in this area. Definitely would make it more walkable, and parades and everything that we have that goes on in this area would be a lot better.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
Are you gonna do separate for each one?
Yeah, how do you want the motion?
Yeah.
Just try to prepare.
Looks like the total amount was 220,
Yeah, it is.
so do you want?
The motion would be just to move forward with the sidewalk project for 2022, or the amount of,
Okay, I make a motion that we move forward with the sidewalk projects as described in the amount of $220,000.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Question?
You support that?
Question on the motion. Are we adding orchard or not?
No.
No.
Who supported that?
Do we have money to add orchard?
It's an additional 20. I just did a quick estimate on
Orchard where? Where you?
one side of Orchard from Main.
Even without driveways, you still could put sidewalks in to make it walkable between the streets.
From Main
Yeah.
to Clark.
Yeah, because if your kids can stay on the sidewalk, you can't put those people, your kids
Right.
drive their bike down there.
So that would be local street fund, we do have the money.
I mean, they don't have it on either side. I'd like to see it just from a play perspective, like Tracy was saying, so kids could have sidewalk places. Yeah.
Did you get?
Right, because anywhere else that there's a gap in the area, there's at least a sidewalk on one side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would at least bridge that gap, having nothing on that street.
And that's what I was asking, if all the sections have it at least on one side. Yeah, this one does not, so.
On what side of Orchard though? It's the street, actual street of Orchard? Is that what you're talking about? On Orchard Street? the
Yeah,
sidewalk?
on actually Orchard Street, not like for the driveway.
Yeah, so I think maybe to rephrase your question, would it make more sense to do the west side or the east side of the street? The west side is the one that seems to have the
least,
dual driveway.
but, yeah, I guess it's equal.
Normally, you go on the driveway side, but whatever council wishes.
Maybe I don't understand the rationale, because there's no sidewalk on either side of Orchard, so there's the sidewalk on the other side towards the cemetery.
No, that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. We're putting a sidewalk in so that Orchard would have one finally, because they don't.
There's no that goes on the side of the street, but that's street.
But it would allow for, like, one of the conversations I think that we've had a lot is walkability in the, like, downtown area. So it would allow for the people who lived on Orchard, if their kids wanted to play out front and ride their bikes, to not have to go in the street. They'd have sidewalk for play and walkability.
Or if kids have to come through Clark Street to Main Street, they could take
No,
Orchard.
there's never been an issue.
They could go around here like this on a sidewalk. Or you said the west side, Brian?
The west side on the satellite view, the Google Earth view.
Yeah, one side of the
shows
street,
a-
looks like the house is closer to the street, so maybe there would be room for a sidewalk.
There's only one house on Orchard Street,
Yeah.
and there's no kids that walk through there, because there's nowhere to walk to. I mean, there's one side towards over the side of the street of the school now.
But if you're coming down Main Street and you want to get to Clark, you could go down Orchard, correct?
So Main Street,
If I went-
through Orchard, go to Clark?
Yep.
So
So
that's
there's,
the front of the house.
so this is,
That's the front of the house.
well, it's irrelevant if it's, what's the front or the back.
So which side do you guys want to
It doesn't matter, probably Sir Meg would be the best judge of that character, given his expertise.
On Orchard Street, on one side of the street, are the houses closer to the road, which would be a problem to put in sidewalks.
I would recommend putting it on the west side.
West side, okay, west side.
For a couple of reasons. We can't connect to Clark on the east side because it goes directly to a driveway. And on the west side, there's one house with a driveway, and also it's a shorter distance. And for connectivity to Clark, the second segment we are constructing a new sidewalk on the south side. So they don't have to cross the street anymore.
Here's where that was. Just one extra break.
Just to make sure, because it seems like there might be conflicting images based off of how you look at it on Google. I'm just trying to pull it up in Parcel Explorer right now just to see the most recent satellite image that we have.
Yeah, Google's a couple of years old, but it's still one side.
Because if you just do regular satellite, it doesn't look like there's any driveway at all. But then when you do the Google Earth, it looks like there
There's
is.
only one driveway to the parents' house for the last 50 years. There's only one driveway.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure? Should we include the Orchard, the west side of Orchard in the project? Or do you want to leave it for next year?
Leave it next year.
I guess if we want to leave it for next year, then, I mean, you know, we can always revisit it for next year's plan.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, do I have a motion?
So, already made it.
We had that kind of support already.
Who made the motion?
It was Brian and this.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Bukowski?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
And President Wright.
Yes. The code enforcement application, we're
So
going
he'll
to,
be here around 7:45.
yeah, so why don't we continue on and, DPW, the garage door. Home Depot does not install garage doors. They were gonna drop it up on the site and it was up to us to bring out a screwdriver. We tried to be cost effective. So you have two quotes in front of you and Marcus, thank you for trying to get another quote, but it's like trying to find hen's teeth. We have two quotes in front of us. We have Advanced Door Specialties in the amount of $7,668. And then our friends at Envision for $7,500.
That did seem too good.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Worth a shot, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
I don't know if this is a question we're allowed to ask. I mean, have we been pretty happy with the work that Envision has been doing? I mean, to me, they've already done a lot of work on the building, and their price is actually the cheapest, so to me, it just makes sense to,
Yeah, they're more familiar with the building.
yeah, I make a motion that we go with Envision Finishing for the garage door in the amount of $7,500.
Second.
Roll call?
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Guerrero?
Yes.
Trustee Bukowski?
Yes.
Trustee Bellinger?
Yes.
President Wright.
Yes. Resolution to purchase fire vehicle, we have already voted on doing this, but the company that is selling the vehicle wants us to pass a resolution that we are going to be, that we are the governing body of the obligor. Okay. And the Village of New Haven Board of Trustees has determined the contract is in the best interest of the obligor for the acquisition of, bottom line, they want us to pass a resolution saying, yeah, we really want to buy it. Do we have a resolution number?
2022-001.
Anybody have any questions?
I mean, we've already made the motion, we've already approved it, and everything like that. This is just the formality at this point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Make a motion that we adopt resolution 2022-001, a resolution to approve a government obligation contract dated as of January 15, 2022, between tax exempt leasing corp obligee and the Village of New Haven on the door, and schedule number 01.
Good.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations on pronouncing. I could not do
Wow,
it.
yes.
Okay, now we come to the planning rezoning recommendations.
Hey everyone. Were you guys able to receive the map that I sent? Just so that follow. So these are the properties that we discussed at a meeting quite a few months ago and presented to you and moved forward with the recommendations to rezone them. So if you, I guess, are you all familiar? Do you have any questions on the properties in question? Understanding why we did them? I'll ask that first. Is everybody good with where we're going with this?
Well, we understand the recommendations. And we understand that there are still some properties that are going to be under consideration for rezoning, so this isn't the final rezoning that's coming from the planning commission, we think.
There are 3 more on Victoria that we currently have at our table. So the main reason for doing this is to have more cohesiveness within the village. So when we look at a property, just for example, in light industrial, so that there's a little bit more of a buffer before we put light industrial in somebody's backyard, basically. So light industrial, multifamily, single family.
Does anyone have any questions about any of the properties that are being rezoned?
The only one that hit me was the DPW, that we're rezoning our own property. I was wondering, I mean, does it make sense for it to go to single family, or would it make more sense for it to be like multifamily or something like that? Because it looks like the neighboring parcel, we have a mix between single family 2 and residential office. So
We went right down Victoria, and basically on the premise that this is our downtown, working our way into downtown, and trying to eliminate that spotty light industrial that is in that path to there. So it will continue, all of these properties will continue to be used as they are until there is a time when the property changes hands. And I think if they continue to use it as is, it will still continue.
right, until the property sells.
Yeah, well, even if the, even if the parcel is sold and changes hands, as long as the use that has been there, the structure that's been there, hasn't been vacant for a period greater than 6 months, then during that sale, you can still continue the uses there. If it's been a period of 6 months or greater, then it has to abide by the new zoning that's in that land.
So what we could do is go through each one individually, and then if you have questions on that one, but just so we're clear. So the first property, 260627300021, on our map is listed as number 1, behind Rite Aid, general business to multifamily. So the general reason for that is there was some property acquired in the area that was going to be single family, so we thought it would be a nice property. There too is a single family. Any questions on that?
General business, what type of business could go in there? Parcel.
Pretty limitless. Is any type of storefront, restaurant.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wide open for general business. You could have anything from like a warehouse type store to a restaurant to really the sky's the limit for the most part. Short of
Nothing with a lot of banging and dust.
I'd say a lot of like headlights, a lot of potential noise and stuff like that. So that's what could be. The only thing that's really limiting there is going to be stormwater situations. It's going to be parking. It's going to be the actual buildable envelope on that lot. That's going to dictate what you can do there, unless you get creative with creating the combinations or doing something like that to increase the footprint for those circumstances. But I know like one of the thought processes like we were just discussing was in the Lennox Township portion, in their master plan, they were looking at some lower density residential along the border, and just to kind of complement what's going there and to have a transition, we were thinking multifamily, just so there's a tapering off of uses there. But that was the logic behind it, in the proposal. So.
Okay.
Realistically speaking, a good portion of that particular property is already consumed by a retention pond that services like that corner.
Okay. And then Arlington?
That would be number 2. That would be the Arlington multifamily to single family. Again, just to make it a little bit more cohesive with the surrounding environment. That would be the Decor Park North property.
All right.
Anybody have any questions on that one?
So Between this one and the last one, there's nothing that we have specific in mind, it's just kind of to make the map, I don't know, look prettier.
The map will pretty, but the future investments in the property would be more guided with this. So to just make it more fluid with the community, like, so to, go ahead, because you're probably
The idea is when you have a future land use map, it shows what the vision of the community, like what you want it to look like, right? In the long term. When you start taking actions on the rezoning, it's more of a proactive rather than reactive. So if you're there, and this is something that could potentially be a spot zone, where you're going to have something that could be a more incompatible type of situation, it could be sandwiched in the situation, because, and like how the infrastructure is laid out, it's just not a great design. By doing something like that, where you do a rezoning, you may have a more complementary development there when the application doesn't get submitted. So you're in front of it before any of that demand happens. Versus it gets developed, and you rezone it, and then you just hope that something happens where then it's down developed or like reducing the economy. So it's just kind of getting ahead of things.
We started to do this as a proactive measure, as opposed to being reactive. We've had some, growth in our community, and, we've all kind of sat there and said, "Ooh, how did this growth happen?" Basically.
Yeah, I mean, number two being single family to me has always made more sense. I never really understood why it was multifamily in the first place. And with all the single family growth that we're seeing right now, that property being single family, I'd imagine that would get swooped up in a heartbeat for development. I mean, every single family property we have in the village is seems like at least, it's getting bought and developed. So that one to me seems quite beneficial to have that be single family. We don't have any multiple family developments going on right now.
Any more questions on the number 2 parcel? Okay, number 3 parcel. Which one? Thank you. The Roselle parcel. Light industrial to multifamily. So we have received some feedback on this property. It's one of the few that we did, and the reason we did this was for a more cohesive transition, again, from single-family homes, which already exist, to the light industrial area, which is down the street. So we put the buffer in between of the multifamily.
Yeah, the idea there is like when you have best practice according to planning is you don't want to have an industrial property directly abutting homes. And even though it's not developed currently, it could be developed. Yeah. And what you have to consider is like what is the most intense way that the site could be developed? Would that be compatible with what's next door to it? With that said, you could see something where you have open storage. You could see heavy traffic trucking. You could have stuff with a lot of noise, a lot of dust, a lot of headlamps, a lot of like pounding in the soil. You could have vibrations going to the residences. And all sorts of things could become quite the nuisance and have some negative externalities, some negative impacts on the surrounding area. So the idea here is like anything else, like everything else we've kind of been talking about, is a transitional area. So you have multifamily, which could be developed in many different ways, but that'd be a good way to kind of go from a more lighter industrial use to something that's a little bit more intense to then something that's less intense, where you have single family zoning. So there's a nice border that goes through there. And that was the thought process there.
Okay, any questions on the Roselle property?
Would it make any sense to have that be general business?
It would be very alone. It isolated. There's no. It would be, I would say, spot zone. It would just be isolated.
It'd be kind of an island in that situation. You'd also have I think the developability of it, where it's like you're on currently it's a dirt road, and we don't know when it would be upgraded. I mean, there's plans for it, but we don't know when that would be. And then in terms of the access of it, I don't know if there's like the proper traffic counts and everything else that would warrant any type of development there. Versus, I think if you add roofs there, and higher density roofs, and you are within a pretty decent, like a pretty close walking distance to the downtown, you could really add a good population base there that would support the downtown area.
Yeah, I guess to piggyback on what John said, if you look at, when you consider it as just a Roselle property, it's, you know, but if you look at it in correlation with our downtown, it does have connectivity.
Yeah, if you connect to
Any more questions on that property? Okay, I addressed this number 4. This is the county property, currently zoned light industrial. We're recommending single family 1. Reason being, just again, the downtown ambiance and making the downtown in the future, not necessarily today or tomorrow. We all know it's going to continue to be the county property for some time, but if they should ever relinquish it, this is saying that we don't want it to continue to be industrial light industrial. Those same statements would be made for the DPW property as well, which was number 6. I just skipped over 5. And then number 5 is a home that sits on Victoria, which is a home on light industrial property. So we're just basically correcting it to be a residential. Any questions?
No, I get the rationale for a lot of them, and for almost all of them. I just wonder if there's any way that we could have, more of them be in general business, just because that seems to be something that we're hungry for. Granted, we aren't really getting the development for, but and when I think of the downtown area, if there was the ability of that being general business, that maybe some storefront or something, or I don't know.
Now, looking at our proposed future land use map, what we're looking at right now is trying to find a way to expand general business along and throughout the Gratiot corridor. Because that's where you have the traffic volumes, you have the right of way, you have everything that kind of caters more towards that style of development is along Gratiot. And then what we're looking at too is, if you're looking at the current map, there's a lot of colors and stuff along Main Street. And what we want to eventually possibly do in the future land use map as well is show that we would expand the downtown general business district throughout that area. So what you'd end up doing is creating like a V shape where you'd have along Main Street and Gratiot commercial corridors. Different styles of commercial, where Gratiot would be a lot more intense because of the whole scale and everything of Gratiot. But then you'd go into a smaller scale commercial that would be more appropriate for Main Street. But where you no longer have it disconnected, you can find a way to reconnect those areas. So that's the long-term vision, and this is the first phase of kind of looking at some of these rezonings. And as we kind of get more will to kind of approach and go after some of these things, we can then take it to the next phase and look at some of these other ideas.
Good?
Good.
Okay. Would you like us to stay, or would you like us to sit?
I have a question.
Oh, nice.
256007? Is the area wrong, or, I thought that one was Macomb County. Road Commission?
Yes.
Are they still in operation, or are they closed?
No,
as far as I know, their operation is some type of warehouse or something like that, like a bull barn or a storage facility.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Were there any questions on any of the parcels? Okay, where you go?
All right.
Okay. Now, if we were to leave the Red A property general business, you recommended a change in zoning out of consideration for a proposed development in Lennox Township.
Correct.
Is Lennox Township or the developer of whatever is built there required to put a buffer between a differently zoned property?
So typically what happens is, yeah, there are like usually like landscape requirements between developments and everything else. What I typically see in a zoning ordinance is whoever has the commercial side as well as the residential side, usually the commercial side is the one that provides the buffer of some sort of like fencing or berm or something like that. Or at least something that's a little bit more built up versus what the residential side typically has to provide. That's, yeah, like I said, that's what you typically see in that scenario.
Yeah, they're really not seeing the need to rezone that just yet. And again, it's a fluid document. We can always change the master plan zoning. If people petition to change zoning, it's fluid.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, there's also something too where like the owner could always, because the future land use map shows it as such, if the market changes and they desire to rezone it, the map would support that rezoning to multifamily as well. So.
Did anyone else have any other questions? How do you feel about rezoning the Rite Aid property?
I think it should be removed from the list.
Yeah, how do you want us to do the motion? Do you want just like us to give an overall motion, or do you want to go property by property, or?
I would recommend property by property.
Right. Trustee Bankowski, do you want that to be your motion, or do you want me to make the motion?
Whatever, doesn't matter.
Make a motion that we remove property number 1 from the rezoning.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Second person.
Make a motion that we move forward as recommended for property number 2 from multifamily to single family 1.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 3?
I'm a nay on that one.
Oh, you're on the end there? Okay.
Make a motion to move forward as recommended for property number 3 from light industrial and multifamily.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Property number 4.
Make a motion that we move forward with property number 4 as recommended from light industrial to single family 1.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion that we move forward with property number 5 from light industrial to single family 2.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion that we move forward with property number 6 from light industrial to single family 1.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you Mark?
I am.
Okay. Why don't we revisit unfinished business, the code enforcement application? And we had 2 applicants. We had Porter and Miller. And we have Mark Ralston. Is Mr. Miller here?
No, he was the FOIA request.
Tony Porter?
I don't know who that is.
You put in an application for code enforcement officer.
I didn't get that.
It was sitting here.
We didn't have that in our packet.
I didn't get that. I don't know who that is.
Okay, well, okay. I just found it under this. We do have 2 applicants. Mark Ralston is here today. Mark, can you tell us about yourself?
I've lived in the village for about 19, 20 years. I'm currently a 911 dispatcher in the city of Troy. I work midnight shift. Currently on the school board. My term expires in 2024. And code enforcement is kind of important. So the better the village looks, I think that's highly important that whatever steps you're taking forward. I heard you talking about rezoning, so I think that is vital to have code enforcement that takes care of properties that look unworthy of being in a village.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for pronounce your words?
Garalzi.
That's what I thought.
You were right.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions?
I have a statement more than a question. I've interacted with Mark while he's been on school board, and I've voiced some complaints that I had for one of our schools and the upkeep. And he was right on top of it, took and got it taken care of, and it was very well done. So in my opinion, he's already shown that he's a good fit for the job.
Any other questions or concerns? No, I just found this on my desk. And this is from Mr. Miller. And I was aware that Mr. Miller picked up an application, but as of today, I was not aware that he had dropped it back off. And I just
Why is over here, not in any of our mailboxes?
well, I didn't know that you dropped it off, and I just found it here, so yeah, I don't know. So the question is, council, do we want to contact Mr. Miller and afford him an opportunity to come in front of council before we choose? Or do we want to make an appointment tonight? Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum, but he did apply for the position.
I think you should invite him to speak also,
Okay, well, should we postpone the appointment until next month?
because he wasn't informed, so.
Yeah.
Just saying it's all very recent.
Well, he just, yeah, I think we just dropped it up today, so. So, thank you for coming in, and we're going to postpone the appointment until next month. We're going to invite Mr. Miller to come and talk, since he did drop off an application
Okay.
last minute. But, thank you.
You're welcome. And then somebody will reach out to me and let me
Yes,
know
definitely.
either direction, whether I got it or not.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
I just have a general question on the position. I know the previous code enforcement officer said that he would take some time to train and replacement, but that was previously. Is that still on the table? Or?
You know, I don't know. I haven't had any contact with him. He was in the office last week. He has contact with Sandy Kazel. But certainly we could shoot him an email if he's still using that email. And once we make the appointment, say, hey, would you be willing? And whoever is appointed his position, we will have to have a sit down, give all the tools necessary, the email. I just had our web guru reassign a new email to the code enforcement at newhavenmi.org. So, you know, there'll be a whole process of getting the position up and running.
Can I interject? I did talk to Daniel. I called him to see what the position was about and what kind of information I would need.
Sure.
And he did say he would give whatever assistance needed, so.
Wonderful.
I did reach
He's a
out.
good guy. He's a good guy. So thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, item E, Parks and Rec Committee, new member. As you know, we've had a vacancy in our Parks and Rec Committee for quite a while. And we had a volunteer email from Elise Hatchick, who is the wife of Mark Hatchick. Elise has been involved in the Parks and Rec functions for a long time, and she's been absolutely amazing. And I think we're very lucky that she's formalizing it. And is volunteering to become the 7th member of our Parks and Rec Committee. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we appoint Elise Hashek to the Parks and Rec Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The post-construction store ordinance, we did pass this ordinance last month, and we ran it past Eagle, and they decided that they wanted slight, 3 very minor language changes. They wanted, under storm sewer system or storm drainage system, the phrase excluding surface waters. It didn't change the intent. It changed the intent in a very minor way, but they just wanted that phrase added. Under applicability, they wanted the ordinance shall apply to all development and redevelopment sites discharging to the village's MS4 as outlined in current Macomb County procedures and design standards for stormwater management. So it's just further defining which procedure invites design standards. And they wanted the phrase under requirements to manage stormwater by following Macomb County stormwater standards new development or redevelopment meeting the threshold set on the Macomb County stormwater standards. They were very minor language changes, but they were insistent that they wanted this language amended. So I would like council to vote on an ordinance. Do we have an ordinance number?
395.
395. And do I have a motion? To pass ordinance 395 and an ordinance to incorporate post-construction stormwater controls.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we've got the Cdbg sidewalk funding reimbursement. This is just an FYI. We were reimbursed for $150,000 from Cdbg funding. And grant writing services, an RFP. I spent 4 days, 8-hour days each day, attending a grant writing seminar. On day 3, when they got back to subrecipient contract, I can't do it, it's out of my wheelhouse. So I would like to talk to council about possibly posting an RFP for grant writing services. Again, we do have this ARP money available. I would love to be able to get matching dollars so that we could maximize our return. To that end, Chief Steer and I talked to Diane Banks at Advancing Macomb. I don't know if you remember, but when we dispersed our Cdbg funding last month, Advancing Macomb was the first name on the list. They are a 501c3, and they write grants. They have written grants for Mount Clemens, for improvements for 3 of their parks. They got hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant money. She is one, Advancing Macomb would be one possibility. We talked to Diane, there is no fee structure. A lot of the grant writers I've talked to before, they say, well, you know, depending on the paperwork, right from the get-go, we're going to charge you from $1,200 to $4,000 to write it. And then they get a percentage of the grant, but you have to give them the money. You're not allowed to apply for a grant with the idea of dispersing some of that funds to the writer. That's not allowed. Advancing Macomb works a little differently. They look for the grants that would be the best fit considering our community. They go for the grants. If they get the grants, they get a standard 5%. And each grant, if we are awarded the grant, it's a simple memo of understanding saying we perform this service and we would get a 5% fee that would come out of our general fund. Some of the grant writers I've talked to, what were some of the figures that Carrie threw at you for grant writing?
1,500, flat fee, $1,500.
Oh, 1,500, okay. So I would like to ask council if they would consider posting an RFP for grant writing services. And we could include Advancing Macomb in a list if we get the people that respond to the RFP. What are your thoughts on doing this?
Seems like a good idea.
Mario, you got that one?
Yeah, I thought we had like a preferred grant writer that we did 2 or 3 months ago. Carrie.
He works with the fire department.
Yeah.
And we faced some challenges getting a hold of him for several months. But Chief Steer was able to make contact with him, and he is moving forward. But again, right out of the gate, it's $1,400 to write a grant.
Communication was horrible with him. It was the day of the grant was due. He called me 7 o'clock in the morning. And finished it, but that's not really, I don't think, what we want to do.
Yeah. So, and unfortunately, that's kind of common in the grant writing world. The takeaway I got from the 4 days of classes, and I have a 64-page booklet if anybody would like to read it. But they mentioned that there are, in this landscape, in this economic environment, there are challenges trying to find grant writers. But I think we owe it to the community and to, again, maximize the ARP funds to try and get matching funds. So should we Post an RFP for grant writing services. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to close the RFP for grant writing services.
Okay, any questions?
So what is it? I mean, what are your parameters? What are your parameters?
Give us one. No.
I understand that, but.
No, the listing would be the community our size, because a lot of grants are based on population size. So we're looking for grant writing to assist us in getting funds for the village of New Haven, population 6,000, and we'll take it from there. I think we want to leave it as open as possible to get as many applicants as possible so we can review what they're offering. But it's rather really kind of generic.
Okay.
Population of 6,000, but we do have to tell them what our population size is because we do not qualify for so many grants.
So this person would be searching for the grants and then bring them to council, say, I found this grant, and then we decide whether or not to move forward with it.
Yeah, because initially, if they're going to charge us $1,400 or more to write the grants, we want to be able to ask them, do you think this is a good fit? Do you think there's a shot at us getting the grant? You know, that's the problem with grant writers, is they do charge you to write the grant, and then you don't get it. So that's why I kind of like advancing Macomb is if you get the grant, it's just a simple memo understanding, and then they get 5% fee.
But they would be searching for the grants themselves.
Yes, based on our information from our master plan for population, based on information from our recreation plan. And she mentioned, Diane Banks mentioned several grants that I was familiar with, like the Charles Wilson Foundation, which gives money mostly for parks and recreation. The DNR grants, there's grant funding available from DNR. So she, you know, she has a track record. She's worked in St. Clair County. She's worked in Mount Clemens. But that's the type of grant writer I think we would want, someone that doesn't charge, you know, up front, but a simple memo of understanding and a percentage fee if we get the grant. So did we get the motion and we got a support and all those in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, call from the floor.
Oh, performance resolution.
Oh,
Hey, you added it.
I know I did. Well, I hand wrote it in. I don't recognize my own handwriting anymore. Where did that go? Hold on 1 second. I've got a fire hazard over here with all the paperwork that I have. Fix that one. Fix that one. I'm getting resolution blindness here. Where did it go?
It's from MDOT for the
Yeah, it is from
resolution
MDOT.
for municipalities. Wow, say that again.
Yeah, it's kind of a boilerplate performance resolution. And I have no idea what I did with it. You got a copy? Because mine literally poofed off the front of the desk.
You did send it to us in via email, or Rachel did.
Okay. So did everybody have a chance to review it? Again, it's all boilerplate. This is gonna make me crazy.
I guess, Mr. Med, could you kind of just summarize, like, what is the performance, like, what is it for?
Yeah, just like President Franklin said, this is a boilerplate resolution required by MDOT for any work that the village involved with in MDOT right away. So for example, we need this one right away for 27 in Gresham. They would not accept the plans even to review without this resolution. I guess we haven't updated that for quite some years, and it's for all communities that have MDOT right away. So Lennox has to do it, Richmond has to do it, Chesterfield has to do it. They noticed that we don't have one active, so they're requesting.
Yeah, when I talked to MDOT, with all the paperwork they had to fill out and go to DocuSign, and the nightmare that it was, they did say that they did update their procedures, And that's where the review of this came through, is because they're updating, and we can look for more changes. The person that I talked to said we could look for more changes whenever we try to do a major street project. So this is just playing catch-up. It's a performance resolution. It's required by MDOT for purposes of issuing to a municipality an individual permit for the use of state highway right-of-way and/or an annual application of permit for miscellaneous operations within the state highway right-of-way. And this came up because of the easement.
So the two names will be listed as the village engineer and Trek County engineer, so we can apply for permits.
Yeah,
So-
this is just authorizing Surmet in the village to apply for them.
We have a resolution number for it.
Yeah, do we need a
It
resolution?
doesn't need
Yes,
one, but we can
resolution?
give one.
Does it?
Yeah, it's our resolution, technically.
Yeah, what's the next resolution number? Oh,
002.
Okay, oh, two.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 22, what was it, 02?
Oh, two.
22-002, performance resolution for municipalities with MDOT.
Second.
So it is moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, call from the floor. Call from the floor? Oh, yeah. I'm still stunned that I found this thing. You should see the fire hazard I got on this desk. Holy smoke.
Good evening.
Yes, you've been there.
At last Tuesday's planning commission meeting, and I was hoping that the liaison would have brought this up. The planning commission we approved a motion to be sent to council asking that council reconsider the sale of the 47 acres. Noting that planning has a responsibility for green spaces and parks and stuff of that nature. So we had passed a motion that was to be sent to council asking that they reconsider not selling the 47 acres and giving planning commission an opportunity to put back together the committee that was doing the research on creating a park and getting some feedback from the community as to if they want that 47 to be a park. Moving on, you talked about sidewalks earlier. I think it was Mr. Meissen. I would have to agree that the stretch on Park, the east side of Park on Hayden Ridge, from Clark to the park, is probably the most needed section. And the other section that was brought up and not approved was the short stretch on Orchard. You know, with Orchard being a cut-through street, it is quite often used by kids to get from Main to Clark. And what you're going to run into as you go down Hayden Ridge, particularly Hayden Ridge from Main to Clark, besides the dead zone by Hoffman, which is useless, you're going to run into some topographical issues trying to put in sidewalks. And believe me when I say you're going to piss off a lot of residents. Okay, particularly the house right by the creek. Because they sit down here and the sidewalk's going to be up here. And you're going to create some drainage issues. Okay. And going down Clark Street on the south side of Clark, you're going to run into some major expenses trying to cross that bridge, trying to cross that creek on the other side. It's just, in my opinion, Orchard, the stretch on Hayden Ridge from Clark to the park, and any other side street, which there are a number. You got First, Second, that have no sidewalks. You got back over here that have no sidewalks. You are better off spending your money on streets that have no sidewalks instead of trying to put a sidewalk on the other side of the street. Because if you drive the community, you'll find that most of the sidewalks aren't used anyways. Okay? And that's not to say that they're not needed, But from a priority standpoint, I'd be more concerned about putting sidewalks, excuse me, where they don't exist at all. Okay, and that is some of the smaller streets, you know, First, Second, Prospect, you know, just to make that part of the community more walkable. You got Delaney, Pasco, Health, you got a lot of streets that have no sidewalks at all. So, you know, spending your money on the other side when a sidewalk already exists, you know. And the other thing that I'm gonna just touch on, grants. You guys are looking for a grant writer, and I would just take the opportunity to remind you that we applied for 5, we were successful in 4, and they all took place in-house.
Call from the floor. And call from the table. I have a couple of quick mentions. We applied for the Detroit Institute of Arts mural on the side of our community building. I got a call from the DIA, and we didn't get the mural this year. However, they're going to be reaching out to every community in Macomb County. And he said, we were number 2 on the list, so he said apply quick next year. He sent me the link, and we could probably get it next year. So that's something to look forward to. And Chief Steer, you want to come up for a minute? About the Macomb County Medical Authority and the awards.
Well, last Friday, we held a Zoom conference with the board of directors from Macomb County, along with our EMS director, and presented awards to the EMTs and firemen that were on scene of the CPR progress at our family day, where the guy was running and collapsed at the finish line. We're happy to say the CPR was performed. Ross was obtained, he started breathing again before he got back to the hospital. He's actually talking to us inside the hospital. The days to follow, he had, some heart surgery, and he is home and doing well. So it was a good thing for the village that the board of directors were giving out the awards to those firemen and EMTs that you have on your list there. They all received a nice plaque and then a pin that they can put in their shadow box. But it was a really good notch in our cap. So.
Yeah, the 6 firefighters that were acknowledged were Captain William Uselli, Lieutenant Derek Wagner, wasn't E in there, Lieutenant William Gower, EMS Coordinator David Brady, EMT Shelby Kraft, and firefighter EMT Les Pettiford. So thank you once again for making them proud. And what are the chances the 76-year-old male drops to his knees right in front of the first aid tent?
Right place, right time.
Right place, right time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Call from the table.
I just have a question. Did Rose Seller, did she sell her, does anybody know?
The for sale sign is still on the building.
The only reason I ask, I noticed there's a new business name registered for her, at her location on Google Maps.
I do believe she closed Friday.
Oh, she did close?
Oh, she did?
Last I spoke with, she was closing Friday, so they're not went through, but
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, well, good then.
Yeah, the information we received is that it is a young lady who's doing home design, home decorating, and wants to hold civic events, DIY classes. So we're looking forward to the new addition. She's still got the for sale signs on the building, but we're looking forward to. Oh, and also very quickly, I contacted Tom Foster about the parking lot next to the restaurant, and I had a conversation with him. He still owns the property. He's going to talk to his accountant about either quit claiming the property to the village or possibly selling it to us for a nominal fee. Apparently there was conversation about it some years ago, but the conversation, according to him, didn't go anywhere. So I'm calling him February 1st when he gets back from Florida, and hopefully we can get a resolution to that piece of property. Any other call from the table?
I figured I'd give a quick update. We did have the police committee meeting Wednesday during the snowstorm. We braved the elements, still came up here. We met with Lieutenant McPherson, and he gave us a really good overview of really just, you know, what all is provided by the Macomb County Sheriff's Department. We did go over a couple of different options that we kind of, you know, as we were talking with them about, you know, adding additional officers to the contract, or how that would all work out. Asked them to give us just some options and do the analysis based off of our population, number of calls that we get, time of day, you know, all that type of thing. Give us a recommendation, you know, of what he thinks we really should be having. There does seem to be quite the case that, you know, we have the one officer at any given point in time. If a call comes in, we do get officers from other communities that do support or back up that officer. So we always have coverage, but maybe it's time that with our increased population and all the new houses that are going in, maybe it's time to revisit, you know, how many we actually have in our contract or how we have it set up. So he was going to come back with some numbers for that. Not to say that that's what we're recommending or anything by that means, but it's just at least we have some numbers to work with. One of the other things that kind of came out from the meeting that I thought might be beneficial for all of council to actually sit down with Lieutenant McPherson and just, you know, have the open discussion about what are the services, what do they do. You know, I believe I speak for both Trustee Dunkowski and myself that, you know, it was very eye-opening. It was very interesting to understand what all, you know, they really are doing. There's one more point I was going to make. Just escaped me. Yeah, it was a very beneficial meeting overall. So more to come.
Off the table? Do I have a motion?
Y'all ain't gonna be
I make a motion to adjourn at 8:31.
Second.
All those in favor? And you'll notice it says 8 instead of 1.
I can finally read the clock.
That's right.